Welcome to the Spark It podcast, where we explore stories, experiences, and insights that spark a fire within so you can make your next big move. I'm your host, Helen Kimaru, and I'm joined by our in house political analyst, Emmanuel Taban. Emmanuel, welcome back to the pod.
Thank you so much, Kimaru. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you here. And today, we are exploring a very quite a sad moment for Kenyans, the death of Raila Odinga, Kenya's longtime opposition leader and democracy icon. It marks a turning point in the country's political history. For decades, Raila has shaped national debates, challenged presidential power, and fought for constitutional reforms that redefines Kenya's democracy. And in this episode, we unpack how his passing reshapes Kenya's political landscape, from the future of ODM and opposition politics to the balance of power with President William Ruto's government. Will Raila's death weaken the opposition, or will it open the door for a new generation of leaders? What does this moment mean for Kenya's democracy, the 2027 elections, and the country's long fight for reform? Tune in as we explore Raila Odinga's legacy, his Kenya's political transition, and the search for a new national voice in the post Raila era. Emmanuel, you are one of the people I know in my life who are very interested and invested in Kenyan politics. What do you think about the death of Raila Odinga at this particular moment, and how does it redefine the political landscape for Kenyans?
Okay, thank you, Kimaru. I think not only Kenyans, but the entire African continent and people who love democracy are shocked by the news about the death of Kenya's former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. I think the death of Raila came at uh, a time when so many people did not expect. And yes, as many people know that Raila has done so much for the country. He has
Mm-hmm,
been regarded as the champion of democracy. I mean, the freedom that so many Kenyans are enjoying today, it's because of the contribution, it's because of the suffering that Raila Amolo Odinga went through at some point. At some point, he
mm-hmm,
was jailed for having opinions that resonated with so many of the Kenyan people. He was taken to prison. He stayed there almost for like 6 years. And that was because he dared to advocate for a Kenya that looks at everybody equal, a Kenya, a democratic Kenya that respects the rule of law. And
mm-hmm,
the untimely death of the former prime minister, I think, is going to change the politics of Kenya forever. The politics of Kenya is
mm-hmm,
likely going to remain the same starting from today onwards. Because
mm-hmm,
you remember that he died at a time when um, the current incumbent president has been so much depending on him. I mean, like Raila came at a very, very heightened moment where almost Ruto's government is about to fall. But then he came in and then gave a lifting hand to Ruto, and he has become an anchor of Ruto's government. So his absence, his death will be so much felt by William Arab Samuel Ruto first, because I mean, and also his death came at a time when his house, the political party, the Orange Democratic Movement, has not been in the same. I mean, they are divided. So I feel this is going to shape the politics of Kenya in the next few days. The politics of Kenya is not going to be the same again. We might see political parties, we might see politicians re-strategizing towards uh, uh, 2027, and because of the absence of Raila Amolo Odinga, so we're likely to see that different politicians and political parties are actually going to come up with a different strategies on how they can be relevant to the Kenyan people. So the death of Raila
mm-hmm.
Amolo Odinga will change the politics of the country forever, starting from today onwards until 2027. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think I've already seen a lot of conversation online and how like there's actually a lot of mixed reactions around these. There's people who sort of feel like he was holding the Kenyan politics hostage to some extent because of how big his influence was. Like whatever Raila would say, would easily go. Whatever, if he's handshaking with the government today, forming a broad-based government, that's where we are following. So he's played such a big role. But even as before we even continue to dissect that, I would like for us to take a look back at Raila's contribution to Kenya's democracy. And maybe for me, I could get started on his role, especially in the 80s and the 90s. He played a very key role in what we call Kenya's second liberation. In the context of Kenya had always been a one party nation. There was a monopoly for the KANU government, and we were not experiencing democracy at that point. Our parents give us stories of what was happening, and Kenya was not. In the context of where we are at in 2025 right now, Kenya was doing so badly in the 80s and in the 90s. And with Raila and other people like Akina Matiba, they played such a big role for Kenya to be a democratic party, to be a democratic nation, to be a multi-party country, which sort of opened us up to where we are at, even having like a new constitution and stuff like that. So that has been one of his biggest contributions to Kenyan political landscape. What would you say for you stands out in the context of his role?
I think Raila being a person who has experienced so much. I mean, he is the only he until yesterday he has been one of the Kenyan politician who has so much experience of the Kenyan politics, and therefore,
Mm-hmm.
um, I know so many people believe that Raila actually was. Uh, Carrying the monopoly of the Kenyan politics because at some point, so many people looked at him as someone who imposes leaders on him. And to them, they looked at him not as a good person, but I am looking at Raila at a very different angle. This is a guy who has experience, and as an elder person in the country, of course, you wouldn't expect him to react to certain things the same way a young person does. I mean, young people,
Mm-hmm.
they are very extreme and they need like instant change. But as an elder person like Raila,
Yeah.
who has experience, he would always want things to get done in a very, very good way that does not actually impact so much in the country. Yes, you might have a disagreement with your opponents. You might not like the way
Mm.
how they do things, like what happened between when Ruto came in. But Raila is one guy who understood that yes, when we have issues, uh, in our pursuit to have these issues fixed, one important thing that we need to do is we need to have a country first. And I believe that is one of the
Mm.
things that Raila has in his heart that I feel is going to miss in so many Kenyans are going to be missing. I mean, if it wasn't Raila, we would be seeing Kenya in a very different state, right? From last year, September 2024, from the Gen Z protest. But
Mhm.
because he understood, he had the country in his heart. Therefore, he came out and then he called for calm in the country. And just because of his call, the country had actually experienced some kind of calm. And yes, I think that is
Mhm.
one of the contributions, one of the things that is going to be missing in the Kenyan economy. Someone who will bring the country down to calm when there is a political tension happening in the country. And Raila has done that over and over again. He did it. So many people looked at it as I mean, he did it in a way of the handshakes and all this. But yeah, that is how he has been playing his politics. That is how he has been bringing calm into the Kenyan nation through handshakes. So many people might regard him as a con man for doing all that, but I feel that is one of the qualities that every leader needs to have. That when we disagree, when we need change, when we need reforms in our country, the way in which we need these reforms to get done shouldn't be done in a way that can actually take our country back. We can opt for an alternative which is peaceful, an alternative that we can discuss what needs to be done and that can actually be delivered.
Mhm.
I think that is the quality that is going to be missing in the Kenyan society. That is the personality that Kenyans are going to miss so much. Someone who can bring the country to calm when there is so much tension. And Raila, I
Yeah.
believe, is the only person who has been doing that. Yes, and I believe really that Kenyans are going to miss that so much.
And I think to just echo what you said, this whole idea of the handshake type of government, people might look at it in different ways. But honestly speaking, just to also just maybe reinforce what you've said, were it not for the handshake he had with Moi Kibaki in 2008, Kenya would have continued plunging in chaos, and maybe the post election violence would have been so bad. And maybe the only handshake that has been a bit questionable for Kenyans, and which could maybe because of the political climate, maybe changing a little bit, would be the handshake from last year with Ruto's government. But the other handshakes that have happened before, I don't think Kenyans really questioned that in that way. But as you've said, for him, he's been in this game for so long, and I would say maybe to some big extent, he knew how to manage people. He knew how to play the cards, and he knew what needed to be done so that he can manage people's expectations and maybe maintain some level of sanity in the political landscape for Kenya. And that cannot actually be ignored. That's a quality that, as you said, should probably just be applauded, and it should be seen. And so, how do you think he managed, for example, to amass such amount of influence in Kenyan politics, even without ever becoming a president? Because I feel like for the last four general elections, he's vied to become a president, where even before, yeah, for the last, I think, four general elections, he's vied to become a president, but never been a president. How does
Yeah,
a person
I
amass
think
such influence?
Raila, like he vied for, I think, like 5 times, but he never
Mm-hmm,
succeeded. And
mm-hmm,
he is the only guy who uh, has been, I mean, like garnering so much influence and has been a very, very important person in the politics of Kenya, even without holding any the presidential position. And that
mm-hmm,
clearly tells us that for one to bring credible change in any society, you necessarily don't have to be a president. Just like what
mm-hmm.
happened in America, in the US, in those years of Martin Luther King Jr. Remember,
Yeah.
he never had the ambition of becoming a president, but he has been a very, very important person in the
Mm-hmm,
history of the United States and the civil rights movement. So I feel that Raila's uh, has been so much important in the Kenyan politics, even without holding that political position, because so many people looked at him. I think it's just because of the contribution that he has done, especially
mm-hmm,
advocating for democracy, making sure Kenya has like the constitution that the Kenyans are enjoying today, and also his stand on multi-party system or multipartyism in Kenya. I think
mm-hmm,
all these small contributions made so many people to believe in Raila so much that even without him being the president, like they still believe that he is the right person. They will still run to him when they need help. Even the presidents, at some point, most of them, when their governments are about to go down, they go to Raila Odinga and ask for his help because he has the trust of the
mm-hmm,
Kenyan people. He's not only a leader of the Luo Nyanza, he's not only a leader of the Luo people, but he is a leader of all Kenyans. And therefore, in the previous administrations, so many presidents who came in, none of them happens to come from the Luo nation or any other Kenyan nation, but mostly from the Kalenjin and the Kikuyus. But most of them still had to go to Raila Amolo Odinga, even when he is not the president. So that clearly tells us that
mm-hmm,
Raila Amolo Odinga, his stance, his ideas resonate so much with the Kenyan people, and that when Kenyans want something to get done, they in most cases run to Raila Amolo Odinga, and because they believe in him so much, they couldn't just have him be the president of the country. So his contribution clearly tells us that even without you being a president or a leader of a country, you can still be destined to make change in your country. And that is what exactly Raila has been doing for the last many, many decades in Kenya.
and I totally agree with you. I think it's the level of consistency
Right.
from way back in the 90s when he was fighting for democracy. He's been consistent in his whatever he stands up for. He's not necessarily wavered that much. it's like this is what we are going for. This is how we are going to head wherever we want to go, and this is the road we take. So it's the consistent efforts that I would say has also helped him amass such amount of influence. And do you think his absence right now could open a door for generational shift in leadership? Like, for example, there's always been these traditional types of politics where it's the older people holding the ball and we play according to their tune. Do you think that will change?
I 100% believe that that is going to change because I think the ODM party has an opportunity at the moment
Mm-hmm.
to re-strategize and be so much relevant again. Of course, so many
Mm-hmm.
people claim that so many people, not, I mean, not many, but the majority of the Kenyan population believe that with the recent handshake of Raila Odinga with Ruto, he has actually made the
Mm-hmm.
ODM party that has been in existence for the last 20 years to be irrelevant. So many people look at ODM as an irrelevant political party at the moment when because of the handshake compared to when it was like some years ago. And I feel that the
Mm-hmm.
absence of Right Honorable Raila Odinga will actually open ways for young leaders in ODM to take over and actually reform the party. Because apart from when we look right now at the leadership of the Orange Democratic Movement,
Mm-hmm.
who are you looking at as possible replacement for Right Honorable Raila Odinga? Are you
Mm-hmm.
seeing at
Mm-hmm.
his brother? Of course not. Looking, some of the main guys are already in their old state, like of the governor
Yeah.
what is his name? The governor of Siaya Orengo.
Orengo.
I don't think he's gonna
Yes.
be a replacement. The governor of Kisumu, Anyang Nyongo. I don't think so. We
Mm-hmm.
have names that are still relevant. The likes of uh, Edwin Sifuna, likes of Babu Owino. These are people who can actually bring back the party to its golden days. So I feel that the demise of Raila Odinga is actually going to open ways for these young leaders to come up because at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, so many people believe that Raila has been of so much influence in the party, and much of the decisions of the political party has been influenced by him, even putting giving political positions. So I feel the absence of Raila is going to open ways for young people
Mm-hmm.
like the likes of Edwin Sifuna and Honorable Babu Owino to actually come out and take bold decision and leadership of the party and reform the party. ODM has an opportunity to revive again and be so much relevant, and that can only be done when leadership is given to these young people, the likes of Edwin Sifuna, the likes of Babu Owino. So ODM still has a chance. And it is up to these leaders
Mm-hmm.
to make the bold decision. They have a chance to either take the leadership or let ODM disappear forever in the Kenyan politics.
Yeah. You've really touched on a very trending topic right now because I've seen a lot of conversation online on people speculating on who could be his replacement, especially at the party level. And you mentioned Babu and Sifuna. Do you think there could be maybe there could be sort of maybe he could have been grooming them to take over the party? Is that a possibility? Could we assume?
I mean, I think Baba has really groomed so many leaders in the Kenya. Even some
Mm-hmm.
of them are not in the ODM. Some of them are in Ruto's
Yeah.
government. He has
Mm-hmm.
groomed so many leaders, and I feel one person that Baba has really groomed him so much has been Edwin Sifuna. And Edwin
Mm-hmm.
Sifuna, I mean, like he has been the SG of ODM for the last 8 years, like 8 good years. He
Yeah.
has been, and he's the most famous SG I mean, in Kenya right now. Edwin Sifuna is the
True.
most famous SG, most eloquent, most articulate. He's well spoken. He is one of the guys
Mm-hmm.
who is well respected in Kenya right now, and I believe that that has been. He is a student of Raila Odinga, and I believe Raila has been grooming him, and over again, even during the handshake, during the broad-based government. In so many
Mm.
cases, Edwin Sifuna will come out and speak against the broad-based government, and at some point, Raila would come out and stand with him, support him, saying when Edwin Sifuna speak, it is the decision of the party. So that clearly tells us that maybe Baba has been grooming Sifuna to be a very,
Mhm.
very important person in the party. But again, in the opposite, a guy like Babu Owino, he has been an outcast in the odium of recent. I mean, he's not being liked by the
Mhm.
likes of Baba. And I feel that this is a
Mhm.
moment for him right now. Babu Owino has the chance because he comes from the Luo Nyanza. He is famous in Luo right now. Only that he was
Mhm.
rejected by the leadership of ODM, but he has support from the ground. So this is an
Okay.
opportunity for them. It's a really great opportunity, and I
Mhm.
believe that Baba has been grooming Sifuna so much, and the absence of Baba, it's going to play at the advantage of Babu Owino. And Babu Owino and Edwin
Mhm.
Sifuna, they have a very good working relationship. You know, of late they have been making, I mean, trends about forming a new political wave, Kenya Moja. So I believe with that working relationship and their relevance, Babu relevant
Mhm.
in the Luo Nyanza nation region, and then Edwin Sifuna in Western or in the Luya nation. I mean, they could actually bring out a lot of crowds, and they have the opportunity right now. Mainly these two leaders, and Baba has taught them very well, and I believe they can be possible replacements. But that will
Mhm. Mhm.
definitely depends on the decisions taken by the party. They might opt for different people, maybe Gladys Wanga or even other leaders. But yeah, Edwin Sifuna and Babu stands the
Yeah.
chance of taking the leadership. And if they want ODM to be relevant and to exist for more years, then these two needs to be given a very, very good influential position in the party, right?
Yeah, I think actually that makes a lot of sense. And I like that you mentioned the broad based government. Last year, after what happened with the Gen Z uprising here in Kenya, I remember there was this particular girl who was trending. She told Baba, she was like, it's our time, just rest. We are going to protest on your behalf. And then, I don't know, sometime later, the broad based government was formed. Raila shook hands with the current president of Kenya, and that kind of brought a bit of bone of contention between now. The opposition, which is now Raila, was like the face of opposition. So, him shaking hands with the current government that was seen as the government that was not for the people at that particular point, Kenyans, especially young Kenyans, felt like they had been betrayed by him. Now, upon his passing, how do you feel? Like, is there gonna be like an altercation of balance between government and opposition? Do you think does it pose a risk for the executive powers in Kenya? Because I feel like he played such a big role that whatever he said in opposition, he kept the government in check. He provided some level of checks and balances, and the most of these governments that have been in existence, as far as I'm concerned, they would probably either hands with him or listen to him or form some type of a deal. Now that he's gone, seeing what he was able to do when he was in opposition, how do you think Kenya, how do we move forward as Kenyans, and does it give now the Kenyan government unchecked executive powers because he's not there anymore?
I think Raila's opposition role, I would say, came to
Mm-hmm.
an end the day he shook hands with
Ruto.
William Samuel Ruto and formed the broad-based government. From that time after his death, I mean, they have been working together with William Ruto, and all
Mm-hmm.
plans and all the developments or things that Ruto has been advocating for, Raila Odinga
Mm-hmm.
has been supporting. He held hands with Ruto, and they were working together. And it is even clear, it has been clear in the eyes of so many Kenyans that they are building on a very good coalition towards 2027. Raila Odinga,
Mm-hmm.
is a possibility. There was a possibility that they're going to be working together in 2027. So from that day when they shook hands and formed the broad-based government, that was the time when his role as an opposition leader in Kenya uh, ended. And the role of opposition, I think, shifted to the other side of the impeached former deputy president Rigathi and the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, and Eugene Wamalwa.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that uh, with the absence of Raila Odinga, it's not really going to mean that uh, the government is not going to be, or the government is going to have unchecked. Uh, I mean, they're not going to be held responsible for all their actions that they're going to take. We will still continue to have opposition. I mean, there are individuals who are allied
Mm-hmm.
to the current opposition political parties or coalitions, like the Wiper Patriotic Front, like the Democracy for People's Party, DAP Kenya, and all these PLP. So I believe that
Mm-hmm.
who are allied to this political party who now call themselves the United Opposition, I think they're going to continue playing the role of the opposition because Raila was already in bed with Ruto, so they were working together. In fact, it is now, I mean, it was seen that the opposition was now checking the likes of Raila Odinga and Ruto because they were working together. So I believe his role or the role of opposition politics is still going to continue in the
Mm-hmm.
in Kenya. So it's not only Raila who is going to. Raila did not go away with the role of opposition politics. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still the government is the executive is still going to be in check, and opposition role is going to continue in Kenya.
That's true. And I think also, as we had mentioned earlier, Raila was one person who was involved in almost all types of protest in Kenya. He was protesting the government. The government has done something small, or if he feels like it's oppressing its people, he's protesting on the street. I kind of feel like he normalized the culture of protest for Kenyans up until last year in 2024, where now young Kenyans took up the mantle and they were like, you know what, we are going to do this for ourselves. So even as we talk about opposition, I would also want us to maybe look at it in the context of the people. The people themselves right now are also the opposition, because I feel like at this point they are woke enough to know this is not the type of leadership we want. We want this, we want that. We can go to the streets, whether, like people have, and we have talked about this in so many episodes here at the Sparkit podcast, where we've talked about the power of social media, of advocacy, and mobilizing. Like right now, people can go online. We don't have to wait for Raila or another person like Raila to mobilize ourselves. It's we want to protest, we are unhappy, we do it. So I would also say that even we as a people are also an opposition to the government, because we have sort of gotten up to the culture, and we now can do this ourselves. We can stand up for ourselves. We can say we don't want this type of leadership, this is what we prefer. So yeah, I think he did play such a big role in helping Kenyans get to that point of realizing that you, the people, also have the power to stand up for yourselves, which is quite commendable. And for a long time, he called himself a soldier of democracy. What does his absence mean for the strength and future of Kenya's democratic institutions?
I think the good
Because
thing
he was
about
an
Raila is
embodiment.
I,
Sorry.
I think he has been referred to as the champion of democracy, of course. And the
Hmm.
good thing about him that his fight for democracy was manifested through the establishment of the 2010 constitution, and I feel that is what that is the print that he has delivered to the Kenyan people. And I feel that
Hmm.
because of the existing 2010 constitution that is in play right now, and
Hmm.
Kenya is still going to be a democratic state because they have their rules written down in form of constitution.
Yeah.
So even if Raila Amolo Odinga is not going to be there, the constitution of Kenya that he has fought for is still going to exist. So when people
Hmm.
talking about democracy, when people are going to demand about democratic rights, they will always refer to the constitution that Baba has been a very prominent part of. So I think his absence is not really going to be maybe attributed to also absence of democracy in the country because he has fought for the constitution and the constitution is already in existence and it's in play that so many people refer to most of the time if they want reforms, if they want things get done in the most democratic way, they don't refer to Baba, but they refer to the
Hmm.
constitution that Baba fought for.
Yeah.
So referring to the
Hmm.
constitution definitely means referring to him as well. So Baba is going to be living in the Kenyan society through the constitution that he has made. So I feel that his absence will never mean that democracy is going to die in Kenya. His absence is still going to make democracy continue because he has established, he's fought for the constitution which is being used in Kenya right now. And I feel Kenyans know that better. And even when he decided at some point to stand away from the protest, Kenyans were still going on the what on protest because they were
Mm-hmm.
referring that it is our right enshrined in the constitution that we have the right to go and picket and demonstrate. It's in the constitution. They did not refer to Baba that Baba thought that we should protest, but they refer to the constitution. And I feel that even in the
Yeah.
next coming years, they will continue doing the same, referring to the constitution as a document that can deliver for them all their democratic rights. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And now that he has also now that he's passed on, uh I feel like as we are talking about these, we can see clearly the role he's played in the Kenyan politics, and he's been quite a figure. The following he had was almost cultic. Do you think we now as Kenyans we will be able to move from like personality driven politics to issue based politics, or are we like so stuck into political figures and we see them as demigods and whatever they say goes, or do you think this changes?
One thing okay, as I said, I think in another episode that we had that I like Kenya because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean Kenya is the only country in East Africa I would say that has I mean respect for democracy at some point, but I don't like the fact that the Kenyan politics is so much tied to individuals, like it's tied to kingpins,
Mm-hmm.
and when we're talking about
Yeah.
the Luo nation, about the Luo politics, we are referring to Raila Odinga.
Mm-hmm.
When we are talking about the politics
Mm-hmm.
in the Rift Valley, we are referring to William Ruto. When we're talking about the politics maybe in the central or mountain, we are referring to either Uhuru Kenyatta or Rigathi Kacha. We're talking about politics in the Akamba nation, we are referring to Kalonzo Musyoka. I think that is one of the things that has really been affecting Kenya
Mm-hmm.
so much. So I think with the absence of Raila Odinga, it's going to change this narrative, especially from the Luo
Mm-hmm.
nation right now. But
Yeah.
so many people would still, because I think the country is stuck to this kind of politics. I believe that the Luo nation will still look for another person who can be I mean, a replacement for Raila Odinga, and they will still look at that person as their kingpin. And I feel this will take time. It will never disappear from the Kenyan society. It's not going to disappear. Even with the absence of Raila,
Yeah.
the Lulus are definitely
Mm-hmm.
going to look for someone who can be I mean, similar to Baba. He can't be like Baba, but I mean, someone who they can bestow their hope on him and look at him as a person who can go and negotiate on their behalf and go mobilize for people to maybe, I mean, form political coalitions towards elections. And I think that will never
Mm-hmm.
disappear soon in the Kenyan politics. It has been happening for the last
Mm-hmm.
many decades, and it's not going to get out soon. Never. It's not going to get out so soon.
Yeah.
With the absence of Baba, I mean, the laws are definitely
Mm-hmm.
just going for a replacement, someone who can
Yeah.
do things the way Baba was doing. Because even if it's Baba only dying, how about the other regions? They still do have the kingpins. The Akamba people still have Kalonzo. The Kalenjin still do have Ruto. Or maybe the Kikuyus or the mountains still do have Uhuru or Rigathi Kachagwa and all these sorts of stuff. So the politics of kingpinship, I think in Kenya will take time to disappear. It's not going to really disappear so soon, even with the death of Baba.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. And I like the fact that you've talked about being a kingmaker, because Baba was a king and a kingmaker himself. Because I remember even in the last elections, you would hear stories of even from the party level when they're doing like their nominations, whatever he says goes, like in his party. Allegedly, that's what I know. Like if he says we are nominating Emmanuel for this particular seat for this particular constituency, that's you. So he had so much influence even in his own political party that all you needed to do was probably be on his good side so that you could influence whether you get that nomination so that you could go to the election. So with such kind of influence and political power, and now that Kenya is headed to an election in 2027, how does this reshape politics, especially even from the most uh, the most local level, even at a political party level to the national level?
One thing that I have really seen happening is what you've just talked about is that you know so many people have been
Mm-hmm.
imposed so many leaders have been imposed on the people because at some point
Mhm.
because of Raila Odinga, just because they stand with Baba, and therefore because of that, Baba will choose them
Mhm.
and pick them and just impose them. And I feel that with the absence of Baba, there are so many casualties that are going to emerge from his death. There are so many people
Mhm.
who are actually feeling so hard the death of Baba more than even Baba's closest family people, or even his wife.
Mhm.
There are so many politicians
Mhm.
who will have to re-strategize, will have to maybe consider their political moves carefully. When we look at
Mhm.
there is by-elections coming in shortly, I think next month in Kenya, and
Mhm.
in one
Mhm.
of the constituencies in Migori County in Kasipul, because of the death of the former member of parliament, Bondo Were,
Yeah.
there is Raila Odinga handpicked the son of the former member of parliament, Boyd Were, to be his replacement, even when the people on the ground do not like him. So many people in Kasipul liked the other guy called Aoko, but then Raila just unpicked him. So, and this is not only the case with Kaspul. We have seen it even in Migori, in
Mhm.
I think one of the constituency, if that is Super North or Super South, where Junaid Mohammed represents, is a member of parliament. Junaid is not a part of that county. He's not from Migori. He's from northeastern, a Somali people, a Somali person. But just because he stands with
Mhm.
Baba brought him and imposed him to be a member of parliament of Suba. So I think Junaid is going to be one of the guy who is really going to feel the absence of Baba. He has to re-strategize on his move because I think the politics of imposition of politicians on the people will come
Mm.
to stop,
It's over.
especially in the low
Mhm.
nation. We have seen that even with the current governor of Wanga, he was imposed by Baba. Even the governor of Siaya Orengo, he was imposed by Baba.
Mhm.
And most importantly, the governor of Nairobi right now, Johnson Sakaja, this is a guy who will feel the absence because he has been building on Baba so much towards his 2027 ambition. So it is seen clearly he was going to be
Mhm.
supported by ODM to seek for re-election. But with the absence of Baba, I think Sakaja needs to re-strategize. And the politics of
Oh wow.
imposition, I feel, is going to come to a
It's
stop,
over.
especially in Luo. There's no more
Mhm.
imposition going to happen because Baba is no more. Those who have been riding on his back will have to be relevant to the people, not just to Baba. And I feel that is
Yeah.
one thing that will
Wow.
change for good, for the good of the Luo people, especially because when Baba was alive, his words were considered final. When he said right,
Yeah.
people go
True.
right. When he said we are doing this, people.
Mhm.
I think his absence will a little bit like shift the political narratives, especially in Luo Nyanza, because he's no more,
Mhm.
and there is no way people will be imposed when they are not liked. Politicians will be imposed when they are not liked by the common people. I think that is one important thing that Baba's absence is going to create. It's going to bring in that change, especially in the Luo Nyanza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in that context, I like that point, particularly on the from the point of view of the people, because now they get to choose their own leaders and who they want. And you talked about re-strategizing, so it seems like right now it's either you re-strategize and appeal to the people, or it's just going to be like a political death for some of the people who are holding these particular seats, whether it's governors, it's members of parliament, whichever, as long as it now the influence is gone. Now it's people can see through you and ask the relevant questions and vote for whoever they want in the upcoming elections, which is really important. Wow. So who when history books look back, what do you think Raila's legacy will mean for Kenya and for African politics on a broader level?
I think Raila, uh, right now, as I said, that Kenya is being admired by the neighboring countries, especially countries in the region.
Mhm.
They have referred to Kenya in most cases when they talk about respect to democracy, when they talk about
Mhm.
giving people the right to go on the streets and protest, when they talk about having people going towards an elections and having different political dispensation. Not one person is taking into power for over decades. They have referred to
Mm-hmm.
Kenya in that lenses, and I believe that that has been brought in so much by so many people, and one of those persons is Raila Odinga. So I believe
Mm-hmm.
that Raila, to so many people, they look at him as a champion of democracy. Um, that they have admired, and when you go on social media today and just see what people are posting, it's not only messages of condolences coming from Kenyans, but people across the world
Mm-hmm.
and the African continent. So this clearly tells us how people admire his leadership, and I feel that history will actually put him on the right side. He is on the right side of the history because he labored so much to have a country in the names of Kenya that so many people today are looking at it as a beacon of democracy. So many countries admire Kenya right now because of the democratic rights or principles that have been observed. I know to so many Kenyans, the country is not doing exactly what they expect, but to so many other
Yeah.
people from other countries, they all they would want is what is happening in Kenya, but they couldn't have because of their
Mm-hmm.
leaders. So Kenya has been an admiration for so many countries, and I feel that admiration is, can be so much attached to Baba's contribution. So when we're talking about every good thing about Kenya, we cannot write Baba off from it. So Baba is not only
Mm-hmm.
seen as a champion of democracy for Kenya, but by the broader African continent. So that is how history will put him. Right.
Yeah, honestly, I also choose to remember Baba as a person who has fought for democracy for Kenya. Because whatever was happening in the 90s, I think if that would have continued, honestly, we wouldn't be where we are at as Kenya, and we wouldn't even be. People wouldn't be benchmarking, other countries wouldn't be benchmarking with us and our democracy and what that looks like. His contribution to the 2010 constitution reforms, us getting a new constitution, he's definitely played such a key role. And for me, also the consistency he's shown in his political career is something I admire. I love his resilience and what he stood for the longest time possible. And that for me as a Kenyan, from my own personal point of view, I feel is something to be admired, honestly. And his legacy honestly lives on in the democracy we get to enjoy every day, in the freedom of speech we get to enjoy every day, in the fact that we can have a peaceful country, work, play, and do all these things. So I'm excited about what's ahead and what we are about to experience as Kenya. And what, maybe in conclusion of this particular episode, what would be that key lesson you've taken from his life, his legacy, and his leadership as a person?
Um, I think one important thing that I've learned from Baba's leadership is that you don't necessarily have to be a president of a country to bring about
Mm-hmm.
that change. You know, Baba sought for presidency for more than four times, but he never got the
Mm-hmm.
chance to be the president of Kenya. And to so many people, he is the person that so many Kenyans couldn't have as a president. So what I've learned from him is that you don't need to be a president of a country to bring change. You don't need to be a president of a country to be that relevant and influential to the politics of your country. All you need to do is
Mm-hmm.
be consistent, stand with what the people want, and therefore you can be like Baba. That's one important lesson that I've picked from him. Very, very, and importantly, consistency. When you stand with what the people want over and over again, people
Mm-hmm.
get to trust you more, and they'll have to look at you and run to you whenever they need help. That is what I learned from his leadership.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think you've concluded it just the right way. And as our condolences to his family and to the rest of Kenya and everyone who believed in his leadership. It comes at such a sad time, honestly, for Kenyans, I believe. And even as we continue to keep the conversation going on social media, I hope people get to remember him for all the good things he's been able to do in service of the country. Thank you, Emmanuel, for gracing the podcast once again and for sharing with us your insights on this particular issue on Raila Amolo's death and what that means for Kenya and the way forward. We appreciate you. And
Thank
for
you.
our listeners and viewers, thank you always for tuning in to our podcast. We appreciate you. Yes, and I might have forgotten. Please check out Emmanuel's podcast. It's called the Concerned Podcast, where he shares insight into different political landscapes for different countries. Yes. Until the next time, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, support us on our social media platforms. We see you, we appreciate you. It's been the Spark It podcast, and I'm your host, Helen Kimaru. Bye.